Last Rays of the Sun. Saros. It's been barely a year since the first appearance of the Scions of the Cold Sun. Since their initial probing assaults, they have brought immeasurable suffering to the people of the Empire in their pursuit of oblivion. Warbands of heralds gave way to entire armies, bringing devastation to territories otherwise assumed to be safe from attack. The spring equinox just past saw heroes aided by Lord Rain blunt the terrible dying curse of the Winnowers in Bastion and protect the Hamrakot Stone in Karov. The battle against Cold Sun is not solely a clash of arms. In Segura, artists and musicians worked with Lashanar to build a beacon to draw in the scattered Scion warbands and allow them to be destroyed by freeborn warriors. Yet every victory against Cold Sun has been hard fought, has been paid for in blood sacrifice to protect the people, the soul, of the Empire. The Imperial Orcs know that particularly well. A desperate attempt to intercept Scions in Scarsind saw many brave warriors fall, and the remnants of the Still Walkers destroy themselves to unleash devastating unseasonal storms across the territory. While there are still several warbands of Scions at large within the borders of the Empire, one by one the armies drawn from the Day Realm have fallen to the courage of Imperial soldiers. After the spring equinox, only two remained at large, the Empty Hands in Miaran and the Silence Ark in Hunmark. Bronwyn's Fall. The Empty Hands taint and twist the trees of Miaran. Last season the armies of Highguard protected the people and the territory but could not destroy the Scion's army. As the spring equinox approached, the heralds of Cold Sun advanced on Bronwyn's Fall. The Granite Pillar and the Valiant Pegasus are needed elsewhere, answering the call of Hammark's beacons and Karaman's defenders. In their place comes the Quiet Steppe, marching down from distant Karov to strike the final blow against the Empty Hands. The Navarre Assembly has urged the Thorns of the Nation to destroy Cold Sun and to protect Miaran in particular. Warbands from Navarre, Urizen and even Highguard swell the ranks in Miaran, practically doubling the number of soldiers fighting against the Scions of the Cold Sun. The Quiet Steppe reach Miaran at Serenale and move carefully south, alert for the possibility of a trap. There are scattered encounters with the Scions. The Empty Hands have sent warbands north and west from their position in Greenfalls, seeking to attack Steadings who have refused to give ground in the face of the threat of Cold Sun. The further south the army travels, the more sign of the Scion's taint they see. Trees transformed into an unliving material similar to polished bone or hard ceramic, the mark of the Empty Hands, which spreads wherever they travel and seeps into the beautiful woodlands of Miaran that the invaders seek to cleanse. They also see other, more immediate signs of Cold Sun's presence. Burnt steadings, villages, orchards and farmsteads, a profound absence of people, many fled, many more slain by the servant of oblivion. The main body of the army is gathered at Bronwyn's Fall. Once this was Sanctuary Falls, a refuge where Navarre took shelter from barbarians and treated the scars of their 1,000-year battle. It was renamed in the first few decades of the Empire, in honour of the Archmage who gave her life to help defeat the Valorn of Miaran. There are two steadings here, close enough that many Navarre consider them to be one and the same, Fallsholm and Longshadow, where artisans once worked to capture some of the beauty of the cascading water. Built into the cliff under the falls that feed the upper reaches of the Gancio, the Imperial scholars who gathered here studied ancient designs carved into the rocks, teasing out information about the creation of the Trods and old ritual dances that date back to the earliest days of the Navarre. By the time the Quiet Steppe reached Bronwyn's Fall, not a bird or beast stirs in the woodlands blasted by the presence of the Empty Hands. Barely 1 tree in 5 is still alive, the rest having been transmuted by the aura that emanates from the Scions. The gates have been broken, the scars of desperate battle visible around the area. They take no prisoners, the Scions of Cold Sun. They are strangers to the idea of mercy. The pool below the falls is choked with ash. Grief fills the hearts of many Navarre Thorns, especially those who had visited the Fall in happier times. To see this place of sanctuary and learning defiled by the madness of Cold Sun drives many to furious rage. The Thorns quickly discuss their approach and prepare an assault against the walls of the steading. The Scions are not the only ones who can fight without mercy, but the orders of the general hold the angry Thorns back, preventing them from giving in to rage and vengeance and throwing their lives away. Scouts identify the best route to approach the former steading, probing strikes launched to test the defences of the invading heralds. As the sun rises in the east the day after the Quiet Steppe reach Bronwyn's Fall, they begin their attack. There is nowhere left for the Scions to retreat, and they fight viciously to kill as many of the soldiers that come against them as they can. They make good use of the defences of the steading, but what failed to protect the Navarre people here will surely fail to protect them from those who come to avenge their victims. Half the scions that burned First Voice Glade and sought to destroy the city of Seren have already been destroyed. The remainder are no match for a furious army of Navarre and their allies, but they never attempt to surrender, to ask or offer quarter. As each scion falls, dying silently without a whimper or a cry, their body crumbles to ash. Those who fall in battle against them meet a crueler fate, their bodies calcifying in the manner of the trees of Miaran. A few magicians are present to prevent such a tragedy, ready to offer surcease of sorrow to those who cannot be saved, or to turn the circle for those who have lost their lives before the malignancy that surrounds the empty hands can save them. A score or more of bodies now lie where they fell, uncannily precise sculptures of grief and foul magic. As the sun rises higher, the defences around Ronwen's Fall are broken a second time. The Imperial soldiers spilled into the ruined settlement. The last defenders, including the Grand Archon of the Empty Hands, withdraw into the caves carved into the walls of the Falls, into the depths of Fallsholm. The Navarre follow. The beautiful murals are spattered with blood, tapestries and paintings century-old are ruined or burned by withering fire. The carpets sodden with blood as one by one the last of the Empty Hand fall. The last to go is the Grand Archon itself, brought to Brook in what was once the dining hall of the steading. It shows neither regret nor remorse as the last scions fighting alongside it are cut down, and just before it is dispatched back to his hateful master, it says something. Noam records its final words, and whatever they are is lost in the chaos of the final fight. Between the engagements with warbands and the Battle of Ronwen's Fall, more than 100 Navarre are slain. The Empty Hand is shattered, the army destroyed by the Navarre. A handful of warbands, those too far from the Falls to make it back in time to join the desperate defence, are still at large in Miaran, but the vile aura that was slowly killing the trees in Miaran has at least ceased to work its terrible transformation. Both steadings at Ronwen's Fall have been utterly ruined. What the scions themselves did not destroy was broken during the attack of the battle itself. The designs that once drew scholars from across the Empire are still mostly intact, but parts have been scoured or broken by the scions, seemingly intentionally. If they had had a few more days, there might have been nothing left. In the days that follow, it becomes apparent that some of the Navarre who lived here escaped, fled before the coming of the cold sun into Astolat. Most chose to stay and fight, to protect the sanctuary of the Falls and the history it represented. For now, there is time to regroup, to mourn the fallen and what has been lost, to repair the trods that run through Miaran. Then, perhaps, it will be time to look toward the future. Or perhaps, more immediately, to look to the north. Tower of the Eagle. For the last 6 months, Hunmark has been defended only by the heroes of Wintermark. By the light of the beacons, they have fought the scions of the Silence Ark. They have driven them away from the Valasal, and chased them across the flatlands of Kronmark. The beacons have done their job. Helped the champions of Suak, Calavesi and Steiner to keep the scions from spreading their curse of oblivion across the entire territory. Now, at least, 3 Imperial armies come to answer their call. As spring fades towards summer, the Granite Pillar of Highguard, the Orcs of the Summer Storm, and the newest army of the Imperial Orc Nation, the just-mustered Autumn Hammers, come to the aid of the Mark. Highborn zeal and the focused furor of the Summer Storm are counterbalanced by the more even-handed tactics of the Autumn Hammers. They waste little time. Their aim is to destroy the Silence Ark before it can use the power of Cold Sun to bring widespread devastation to the heartlands of the Steiner. The Orcs fight with the names of the dead on their lips, the names of those who fall fighting the remnant of the Still Walkers in Scarsind, and the crimson-skinned heralds of the Shadowed Flame who fight beside them fan the flames of their grief and their anger. They aren't the only supernatural entities who accompany the Imperial Orcs. A trio of iron-masked observers from the city of Bar and Bond have taken it upon themselves to accompany the Autumn Hammers. They occasionally make tiny, inconsequential suggestions as to how this supply line might be better organised or that makeshift palisade might be better positioned, but for the most part they simply observe the tactics of the newly minted army. The Highborn fight with virtue as their shield and sword alike. They have faced 3 armies of scions, and now they will ensure that the heralds are driven back to the domain of their crazed master. Cold Sun has sought to slaughter the virtuous of the Empire, to tear at their spirit for almost a year. The first army of Highguard will not rest until their threat has been ended once and for all. As well as the armies, 4,000 independent warriors fight alongside them. The majority battle with the Summer Storm. but a few with each of the armies and a couple of Wintermark champions still battling beneath the light of Hammerk's beacons. They are also joined by the host of the Red Bear, the same powerful Ursine heralds from the realm of Cathan Cannae who fought in defence of Alisal, called to battle the enemies of Wintermark in acknowledgement of the heroism of the nation's warriors. For their part, the Silence Ark are gathered at the Tower of the Eagle. The old ruin, a tumble-down tower atop a hill that was once a beacon, marks the location of a powerful regio aligned with the Day Realm. 3,000 scions have encamped around the tower, raising defences and clearly preparing to face the assault of Imperial forces. Why here? Why now? The summer storm saw the destructive force unleashed by the Stillwalkers firsthand. They have reason to be worried about what the Silence Ark may be planning. The Scions send a few warbands out to keep pressure on nearby halls, but they are focused on ensuring they are not driven from the ruins. They have quickly established defences. Barbed spears of blue-green crystal jut like distorted stalagmites from the low hills around the Tower of the Eagle. They are as strong as stone and glow with an unwholesome radiance at night. They also take advantage of the terrain here, working with a familiar supernatural cohesion to keep a force several times larger than them at bay. It's rare to see the Scions fight defensively. This may be the only time they have not actively been striving to spread their wickedness and find new victims to destroy. The supernatural soldiers fight with the same awful silence they have shown before. They do not cry out when injured. They do not sing or shout in battle to raise morale. They simply fight as effectively and efficiently as possible to bring down their foes. Unconquered scouts report that the concerns of the summer storm are by no means unfounded. While the majority of the Scions keep Imperial soldiers at bay, a small cadre of channelers are busy building something atop the central hill, using the hollow shell of the Tower of the Eagle as a scaffold. They work under the guidance of the High Archon of the Silence Ark. The Unconquered say the majority of the construction seems to be done by coalescing or extruding the same crystal that makes up the defences scattered around the tower. They are also using significant amounts of mithril and small amounts of what can only be ilium. The courageous scouts who manage to confirm this pay the ultimate price. The last burns to ash from the inside out, even as they deliver their final report to the commanders of the Imperial forces. Stories of what happened at Duskani, at the White Tower, are known to everyone here. With grim determination, a bold plan is sketched out and put into operation. As the summer solstice approaches, the granite pillar launch an irresistible attack against the Tower of the Eagle. They press forward, focusing on killing every scion in front of them, but trusting to the Imperial Orcs to protect their flanks. For their part, the Summer Storm focus their fury not just on the destruction of every scion who tried to stop their advance, but on ensuring the Highborn will get where they are going. The Autumn Hammers split into 3 cohorts, supporting the Pillar and the Storm and making certain that the scions cannot encircle their comrades and strike at their rear. As the battle is joined, thousands of orc throats give voice to a savage cry, the names of the fallen: Firesong, Irontide, Bloodcrow, Ashbourne, Red Hand, Skywise, Bleakshield, and Gaterender. None are forgotten. Many of the highborn soldiers join in, adding the names of their own fallen heroes to the chant as they thrust an iron spear into the heart of the Silence Ark. Nobody knows it, but just as the highborn vanguard clashes against the defences at the Tower of the Eagle for the first time, the Quiet Steppe launched their own final strike against the Empty Hands in neighbouring Miaran. When the last of the scions assailing Ronwin's Fall is destroyed, a shudder of unseen power runs through the remaining Silence Ark, strengthening them, restoring them, bolstering their will to fight. They are the last army of scions left in the Empire, and the entire focus of Cold Sun, its terrible, remorseless gaze, falls upon them. They fight like demons, mortals and scions alike. As the battle is joined, a blue-green radiance kindles inside the ruined Tower of the Eagle and washes out across the battlefield. Anyone who falls beneath the weapons of their foe will find no tomb, no rest in the grand ossuary of the Ilaram. As the heart beats its last, each body bursts into unnatural flame, consumed in an instant, leaving only ashes behind. As each scion falls, the light within the tower becomes imperceptibly stronger, brighter, harsher. By the time anyone realises that there is something wrong, they are committed. It is too late to pull back. 2,000 scions die and burn, but they do not falter. They give no thought to their self, only to the strategy of their master. 200 Imperial heroes fall, too far from the healing touch or the succour of their allies. Each orc who is lost, their one life given to save the people of Wintermark, is marked by the heralds of Janon, who add their name to the battle hymn as the fighting presses closer and closer to the cursed tower. And then they are through the defences and fighting up the hill. The army of the Silent Ark is falling apart, but they do not, will not, cannot stop fighting. A terrible roaring noise comes from within the tower, and a column of blue-green flame erupts towards the heavens, brighter than the sun at noon, visible as far south as Tasato, as far east as Larocque. A terrible, discordant, indescribable roar, louder than thunder, splits the air, and the tired remnants of the Tower of the Eagle collapse, pulled inwards and burning into nothing in the space of 3 heartbeats. The fire falls back down, sucked into the heart of the construction the channelers have built within the Regio. A gate of shining mithril and aquamarine crystal, carved with runes and sigils inlaid with ilium, 20 feet tall, 20 feet wide, it marks a space within which can be seen a light so potent it is impossible to look at directly, but there is movement within. Even as the Imperial heroes press closer, the Grand Archon of the Silent Ark, the last Grand Archon still in the Empire, gives voice to a terrible cry of their own, raising their arms, and a dozen fresh scions of the cold sun step through the gate, out of whatever chamber lies on the other side, onto Imperial soil. Despite the wards that lie across the Empire thanks to the power of the Imperial Conclave, the Silent Ark have torn open this Regio, in the wilds of Hunmark, to allow their fellows to cross from the realm of day to continue the invasion of the Empire. Thousands of them, ready to continue their master's crazed plan to bring oblivion to the whole of creation. But it's too late. The Silent Ark have taken too long, and underestimated the Imperial armies ranged against them. The Grand Archon falls, peppered with arrows, as do the channelers arranged in a tight circle around the gate. Their magic is clearly not fully woven, not properly anchored to the structure they have built. As the scions fall, the light in the gateway flickers and cracks, shattering impossibly into pieces that explode outwards like the glass from a broken window. The scions still fighting to defend the Regio absorb the brunt of the catastrophically disrupted magic, torn to shred and blasted to ash in a second. 100 Imperial soldiers, highborn and Imperial Orc alike, are caught in the backlash. Half of them killed instantly, the rest marked with the terrible touch of the cold sun. Many more are stunned, temporarily blinded and deafened, hurled to the ground as the magic unravels, expands outwards, and then is sucked back into the space within the gate, taking the remains of the fallen with it. The gate itself is left as ruined as the tower that stood around it. 2 columns of twisted crystal are all that remains, broken off less than 10 feet from the ground. There is no sign of the rest of the structure. Between the 2 pillars, though, the blue-green radiance persists, a steady, terrible light that spills out. Where it touches the living, it leaves terrible burns, melting skin and flesh, twisting bone, burning anyone who gets too close. The surviving soldiers retreat back, and those who are not focused on the matter of getting away from the corrosive light marvel at the fact that not a single scion seems to have survived the battle at the Tower of the Eagle. A couple of warbands that were elsewhere when the tower fell might endure, perhaps, but the vast majority of the scions are no more, blasted to ash by their own collapsing gateway. The soldiers don't know it yet, as they count the cost of this terrible battle, but the destruction of the Silent Ark marks the end of the Cold Sun incursion. There are still warbands here and there, remnants of other armies or of those groups that came across in the initial flurry when the gates of day were thrown open, but they are few and far between, and getting rarer, hunted. On the run, at the mercy of the heroes who will not let them regroup, who will not risk the cold sun rising again, not while there are Imperial champions to oppose it. Coda. The Empire has been scarred. The marks of the cold sun persist across Imperial territories where they fought, and it will likely be generations before they fade, if they ever do. Thousands have died, both in the initial attacks and in the season of fighting waged across almost every Imperial nation. Entire settlements have been annihilated, leaving ashen ruins or rings of warped glass behind as the sole markers of where they once stood. But for now, at least, the threat is ended. Except where the Tower of the Eagle stood, 2 broken pillars of warped and blasted crystal remain, 20 feet apart. The illumination that burns between the 2 columns is steady, unblinking, and irresistible. There is no way to approach the Regio. Living beings who get too close, get within a quarter of a mile or so of the blasted hill, burn. Those who test the edges begin to die, and only immediate aid helps them to avoid being burnt to ashes. The gate that lies at the heart of the Regio is closed, held shut by the declaration of the Conclave. But if the vigil of Imperial magicians ever falters, if for whatever reason they consider the cold sun no longer an enemy of the Empire for whatever reason, then the force that keeps its portal closed will falter. And then, well, the Empire has seen what cold sun and its scions are capable of. Game information, Cold Sun. The region of Cronemark has gained the Sungate quality, representing the magical disaster constructed where the Tower of the Eagle once stood. The steadings that made up Ronwin's fall have been destroyed, and much of the ancient artwork found there damaged or ruined by the Scions. The Regio once marked by the Tower of the Eagle has been permanently altered. While Cold Sun is under enmity of the Imperial Conclave, it is quiescent. Should that enmity be relaxed to neutrality or amity, the Eternal would be able to send at least one army of Scions through, perhaps more depending on how long the enmity were relaxed for. Dismantling the gate at the Tower of the Eagle is currently impossible. The Regio will quickly kill any living being that gets too close. There is also an unsettling concern that this is the only Regio the Empire knows about. A lot of Mithril and Ilium fell into the hands of the Scions during their first months of the incursion, and it is possible that similar nascent gateways have been established in out-of-the-way places. Almost certainly not on the same scale as that in Handmark. A pillar of fire reaching to the sky would be hard to miss, but a potential threat should the Conclave decide to remove enmity from the Eternal, or should enemies of the Empire find a way to force one open in spite of the Conclave. None of the military units supporting the fighting against Cold Sun in Handmark or Miaren received shares of the Imperial Guerdon. Participation, Miaren and Handmark. If your military unit was assigned to support the Quiet Steppe, you may have been present at the Battle of Ronwin's Fall. If you wish, you may email plot with your CID before the 19th of July and ask for a lingering traumatic wound to be included in your pack. This will represent either lasting damage to sight or hearing, or injuries inflicted by the Unravelling Day magic. Be aware that while it will be treatable, if this wound is not healed by the end of the event, the effects of some of those injuries might prove fatal. If your military unit was assigned to support one of the Imperial armies fighting the Cold Sun in Handmark this season, Summer Storm, Autumn Hammers, Granite Pillars, or the Beacons of Handmark, you may have been present at the Battle of the Tower of the Eagle. When the gate constructed by the Silence Arc was disrupted, the energies unleashed hammered everyone nearby. If you wish, you may email plot with your CID before the 19th of July and ask for a lingering traumatic wound to be included in your pack. This represents either injuries inflicted by the Unravelling Day magic or damage to your senses from the light and noise involved. While it will be treatable, if it is not healed by the end of the event, the effects of those injuries may well prove fatal. In addition, a player whose military unit specifically supported the Summer Storm may have come into contact with a small number of Heralds of Janon who fight with the army. If you wish, you may experience a role-playing effect. The memories of friends and family who have fallen in battle intrudes on your thoughts, and you feel driven to ensure they are never forgotten. It is easy to be angered by anyone who seems to be diminishing the grief you feel, and easy to lash out physically at such individuals or institutions. If you choose to embrace this role-playing effect, and have the hero skill, then at any time during the summer solstice you can gain a single temporary hero point, provided you engage in appropriate role-playing showing how you channel your sorrow into a burst of rage or fury. You cannot use this ability if you are weakened or dying. Once expended, the hero point is gone, and it fades naturally by the end of the summer solstice. Conjunctions. 3 opportunities exist to confront the remaining Scions of Cold Sun during the summer solstice using the Sentinel Gate. Fading Words, Handmark. A force of Scions are threatening Wood Heath. This skirmish is a combat highly likely encounter. The Thane of Dunhearth Hall is responsible for stopping the Scions. Last season, a force of Scions were able to channel the force of Storm Pass above Pakarnan's Pass, Skarsind. A force of Imperial Orcs, supported by heroes from across the Empire, met them through the Sentinel Gate but were forced to withdraw. The Scions unleashed the force on White Lake, severely damaging the structures, and then using the cover created to move south. Now they have been found attempting the same thing on one of the peaks in the northeast of Wood Heath, Handmark. If the Scions are able to unleash something similar to what they managed in Skarsind, then it will cause a disaster across the region. Where Pakarnan's Pass had few settlements, most of the Imperial Orcs preferring the other regions of Skarsind, Wood Heath is one of the more densely settled regions in Handmark. The burgeoning town of New Dunhall, along with the many structures around it, would suffer widespread damage. There are many commissions at risk: Autumn's Boon, Vale's Might, Fool's Heart Cave, Dunferth, and the Valley of Pride. As such, the civil service have judged that the citizen responsible for this conjunction is the Thane of Dunhearth Hall. It is up to Tobritan Dunning to ensure that the Scions do not complete their ritual. A message sent. Redoubt. A force of Scions are advancing on the Tower of Light and Shadow. This skirmish is a combat highly likely encounter. The Penumbral Watcher is responsible for stopping the Scions. During the autumn equinox 385 YE, a force of Scions marched on the Brilliant Star. When part of the garrison of the Court of the White Fountain arrived at the Mithril mine, they discovered it had seen a fundamental change to the nature of the mine, but no clue as to where the Heralds of Cold Sun had gone with the Mithril they had claimed. Some of them journeyed to Hunmark to support the Silence Ark in their failed attempt at claiming the Tower of the Eagle. The rest were assumed to have been killed or moved to support one of the other armies that has since been destroyed. The Scions managed to avoid notice as they patiently waited for their chance to strike at the Tower of Light and Shadow. The Scions are on the move, advancing on the Tower of Light and Shadow, and the force is expected to arrive a few days after the summit. If they are not stopped, then they will unleash something similarly dangerous to what was done to the Brilliant Star, fundamentally changing the nature of the tower. Given that this represents a direct threat to the Tower of Light and Shadow, it is the responsibility of the Penumbra Watcher, Izora Highwind, to stop the Scions. Pale Shadows, Mirkarova. A force of Scions are advancing on the icy crag of the Eternal Sun. This skirmish is a combat highly likely encounter. The Master of Ice and Darkness is responsible for stopping the Scions. Shortly before the spring equinox, the Blade of Skies were broken by the combined wrath of the Iron Helms, Northern Eagle, and the Quiet Steppe. Only scattered remnants of the Scions remained. Most were hunted down by the soldiers, some were left to the Schlachter and Warders to deal with, but a few remained. The largest group of which travelled north to Mirkarova, towards the icy crag of the Eternal Sun. There is uncertainty amongst the Kabbalists who discuss the matter. What could the Scions possibly hope to gain? The force is too small to threaten the College of Magic, especially if the Heralds of the King of the Forest of Ardennes can help defend it. The answer comes shortly before the summit. The Scions, invested as they are with the same potency as the Blade of Skies, will break through the high hills that overlooks Volkitrava and cause significant damage to Icy Crag. Given that this is a direct threat to the icy crag of the Eternal Sun, it is the responsibility of the Master of Ice and Darkness, Senwin Eternal, to stop the Scions. On hearing the threat, Silverbrow dispatched one of his swift messengers to deliver a small package of aid to the Master, in his capacity as patron of the college. OOC note: the Master will find a number of golden apples, a couple of potions, and a ribbon for a rod in their pack.